Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's MJ Vallejo, the host of the Creative Crucible podcast. It's been a while, and I'm actually really excited to introduce my guest today, even though I say that with every single guest. But today, this episode as well is going to be for those who are maybe trying to start photography as a hobby. Maybe you've been thinking about doing a YouTube channel, but not really executing. Or maybe you're really trying to think whether you want to make that big leap into a creative career. Without further ado, we have Mr. Chris Chu.
Whoa, that was a really good intro.
Did you like that one?
That was a really smooth intro.
Oh my gosh.
I would not have been able to introduce anybody like that before.
Oh man, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. It's warm here in my hometown, Daly City. It's average 51 degrees here with fog. So having a heat wave come through that's like 70 degrees is beautiful.
Oh man, yeah, no, I actually love it here. I really like that salty breeze you get from the ocean. So it's really nice to take a quick drive away from the South Bay of San Jose, where it is just freaking hot and traffic everywhere.
100 degrees right now.
100 degrees right now out there.
It's too hot.
I want to get right into it. And so I want you to kind of just introduce yourself and who you are and what you do. I mentioned earlier that that you are a photographer. How did you get your start? How long have you been doing that for?
Yeah. So just a quick intro is, I've been doing photography for like 10 years now, coming up on 10 and a half years. How I got started with that is, back in 2010, it was a Chinese New Year with my dad's side of the family. And for my dad's side of the family, there's always like a relative that loves to show off their tech of the year. So when the first iPhone came out, one uncle showed off his iPhone. When this phone came out, they showed it off. In 2010, it was my cousin Tony who brought his Canon DSLR. I totally forgot which one it is. But he asked me if I've ever seen a DSLR before. I'm like, oh, I think my dad owns one. And he's like, oh, do you know what the depth of field effect is? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I think in 2010, I was a freshman in high school. And he's like, oh, let me take a picture of you. So when he took a picture of me, I was in focus and the background was blurred out. Instantly like that, I fell in love because I've never seen something like that before. And I just like wanted to get that for myself. So from then, like I did like a bunch of odd jobs, worked at like summer day camps and like really weird minimum wage jobs, and then finally saved up for like my first pocket camera. It didn't have any depth of field effect because the sensor size is so small. But I like took pictures of everything, posted up on Facebook, and then all my friends would be like, oh yeah, remember when we did that? Remember when we did that? It would be like huge photo dumps. I wouldn't be like posting every single day, like maybe like every 2 months kind of thing. So it was like really fun to like take pictures. And then from then on, I just chase, like upgraded to my first DSLR, then went to full frame, then went back down to crop sensor, went back to full frame, and then now I'm on Canon from all that Nikon stuff. And then now I'm a full-time photographer and I make YouTube videos. So yeah, that's my intro.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. I feel like we just did a giant fast forward to everything. So here's the thing. 2010, that makes me think of, that's actually when I started when I started doing photography, or when I first started picking up a camera. That was like either the Canon T3i series or the 5D Mark II days.
Oh, you got the 5D too?
No, actually, so I borrowed it from school, so I never actually owned a camera. So, but the thing is, you mentioned that you started off with like a little point and shoot camera, and you kind of just started taking photos every day or here and there whenever you could. When was the transition between when people started to realize like, hey, this guy's kind of getting better at what he's doing, maybe I should hit him up, I need some photos done? So like, when did you start? Let's talk about your first gig, your first paid gig.
Yeah.
How did that go about?
Yeah, so I had that little point and shoot for 2 years. And then, like I said, I worked at like day camp jobs. I brought that little point and shoot to work, and then one of the kids grabbed it out of my bag, and then he broke it. So when he broke it, I was obviously like pretty frustrated with that, but I was like, honestly, I was trying to upgrade to a DSLR anyways. So I guess this works out. So I got my first DSLR, the Nikon D3100, back in 2012, I think. And then that was when I started to get better. And I focused more on like composition and all this stuff. And my first gig came in senior year of high school, 2014. That's so long ago now. 2014. And my classmate was turning 18, so she was having a cotillion. For those of you who don't know what a cotillion is, it's just like a Filipino like quinceañera, except like it's for when the girl turns 18. And then my friend hired me, and I was like, oh shoot, I've never done a gig before. And like it feels like such a high pressure thing because like there's gonna be like a fancy dress, there's gonna be a whole like VIP party, and everybody's gonna be dressed up. So I was like really nervous, and I wasn't that great at editing. In fact, I used VSCO filters as much as I could. I got them, and then like I would never pick the same filter for the same lighting situation. Like if I were to take a picture of us twice, those two photos would look completely different. So when I had that first gig, that's exactly what I did. Every single photo looked terribly different from the other. And my friend never said anything negative about it. She liked them. I don't know if she actually liked them, but it was a 6 or 5 hour gig. She paid me $20 an hour, and as a senior in high school, that was gold money. So I couldn't turn it down. I couldn't turn it down. But it was really hard directing people, really hard coming up with poses on the spot because I never posed anybody before, and editing was a travesty. And that was my first gig.
Wow. And I can't even imagine how that was, because at the time, I don't know any kind of like YouTubers at the time that could really teach you all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, I didn't look up any YouTube tutorial.
Oh man, yeah, that's so crazy. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know, like $20 an hour for like what, 6 to 8 hours. That's like a prom ticket.
Yes, it is.
like a or something, right? So then, after high school, did you just like continue to freelance? Is that what? Has freelance always been the plan ever since you got that Nikon, that DSLR camera? You're like, I want to freelance and kind of like make a living out of this.
That's a good question. In junior year, I remember posting on Instagram that, oh, one day I wish I could be a professional photographer, but I have no idea what that would look like. I think in my head as like a junior in high school, a professional photographer is just someone who takes professional quality photos, not necessarily does it for a living. So when I got the DSLR, my whole goal was to just take better photos, not to like really make money off of it. I just wanted the best Facebook photos or the best Instagram photos on the platform. So in college, studied computer science because as a senior, I just wanted to have a major that led to a high-paying job, and that's it. I just wanted money, like at the end of the day. So doing freelancing or doing photography full-time was never in the plan. So when I went to college, I did get like gigs here and there, super duper randomly, like very spread apart, like maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And they would be like random family portraits or
maybe grad photos
or sports events. Like, oh, can you take a picture of, or take pictures at my son's basketball game or something like that. So it'd be like really random, and they were fun, but I would never be like, oh, this is it. Like, I want to do this kind of thing. That came like way later down the road. But in the beginning of college, when I had that DSLR, it was just like, I want to have better quality. So I wanted better glass or like a better sensor. So yeah.
I see. Okay. So with college, how did that turn out? Like with computer science. So right out of high school, you wanted to go into computer science and not photography. I feel like at the time, because the times are different now between now and then, simply because it's getting close to normal to be working in a creative field. You know, you go on Indeed, you go on LinkedIn. There's a lot of jobs posted out there for graphic designers, photographers, videographers. It's like, it's so normal nowadays. So I can't even imagine just trying to pursue a creative field, you know, back in 2012 or and whatnot. So I mean, I understand, you know, I watched one of your recent YouTube videos about kind of like dropping out of college. I want to know how that process went, and because for anybody listening, if you kept up with maybe my social media, I actually just graduated from film school, and the thing is, like, even in the middle of, you know, my college career, I was actually thinking about making that jump. Like, screw this, I just want to go like 100% in. But you know what? We're not ballsy. Not everyone is ballsy as Chris Chu here. So please explain this story.
Yeah, so well, everybody can definitely be as ballsy, but it takes a lot of like circumstances to, like, you know, help get us there. The process, wow. I remember in senior year of high school, 2014, my friend Paolo and I were in our accounting class and not paying attention. We just wanted to Google search like, what's the highest paying jobs in 2014? obviously doctor was one of them, lawyer was one of them, the typical Asian occupations, and then computer science was like up there too. And I was like, oh, I could see myself like being at a computer and like coding. Coding seemed like so like glamorous and stuff at that time. So I was like, okay, I'll just pick computer science. Coding seems cool. Colorful letters on a screen seems really cool. And building stuff. And Snapchat, I think, was getting hella popular at that time.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Snapchat was the dumbest thing like ever when it first came out. I'm like, you take a picture and it disappears after 10 seconds or less. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then it ended up blowing up like crazy. So that kind of helped me inspire to pursue computer science in the first 3 years of college. I went to community college, by the way. Nothing wrong with going to community college. And like I was doing great. Computer science, I was like at the top of my class, acing all my classes, even got like a job as a tutor because I was like good enough to be that way. Or my teacher thought I was good enough to start tutoring people and get paid for it. And I was like, okay, this is it. Awesome. And then I went to my first hackathon. It was a good experience. I almost won. I was like in second place for like one of my projects. I'm like, wow, I get to like live this, like I'm getting a good taste and picture of this tech life and all this other stuff. And then I transferred after 3 years in community college to San Jose State, heart of Silicon Valley. Their program was supposedly like super good. And then everything like literally just turned off in my brain, like in computer science. I totally did not understand data structures anymore. Didn't understand like why I want to do this anymore. And then like all these like voices of like, oh, because you're like pursuing this just for money, you're going to burn out so fast because you're going to find yourself doing things that you don't like for money. And then I was like, uh-oh. And then like all of a sudden, so many like YouTube people start like proclaiming that same message. And I'm like, oh no. and then I started to feel like an imposter, like in Silicon Valley. Like I felt like because I wasn't getting it anymore, I felt like all of my accomplishments leading up to that point was just by luck. And that I actually don't deserve to be there. Imposter syndrome for anybody who's familiar with that. And then as I was like going through this whole thing, I was still getting better at photography. Every single weekend I would go out to shoot with friends or by myself, like at some like random nature location or random portrait session just for fun. And like I was getting a lot better at it, and I was like, it was getting so fun. Gigs started like slowly climbing, still not even close to being sustainable as a full-time job. And then I started realizing that for computer science, even if I like push through all this anxiety, this imposter syndrome, and I get the degree and I get the six-figure job, I started to really realize that I don't really want to work with these kind of people every single Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing. One of the funniest stories is I was in one of my data structures classes, and I was like, okay, I guess I should just like try to make a friend or whatever. And you know, like how the stereotype of like CS or like coders is like, oh, they don't go out much. Well, it's not true for everybody. It's a stereotype. Stereotypes don't apply to everybody. Right. But in this situation, it did, unfortunately. I remember I was just getting to know my classmate, and we were just like talking, small talk. And then I came to the topic of like, oh, what do you like to do for fun? And I said, oh, I like to take photos and I like to go hiking. And then she asked, oh, what's the best place you've gone hiking or take pictures at? And I was like, oh, Yosemite. And she's like, oh, what's that? And
wait,
I'm like,
what?
Yeah, yeah, she didn't know what Yosemite was. And I'm like, okay. Maybe she's not from California, or maybe she's not from the States. And so I asked her like, oh, like, where are you from? She's like, oh, I'm from here in San Jose. I'm like, oh no. And the worst part was that she had a MacBook open. And you know how MacBooks come stock with a Yosemite background? So like, oh my God, it was so bad because all I did was point to her desktop background. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's Yosemite. She's like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. And she's like, where is that? I'm like, oh, it's in California. And she's like, oh, I should go there one day. Oh, did I peek?
No, you're good. You're good. Everything's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I was like, oh my gosh, like these people who I'm learning with, we don't even do the same thing. And then I asked her what she did for fun. She's like, oh, I looked up like how to do this in Python and other coding languages, and I was looking up what Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, was doing, and like trying to see like what he would potentially need in software engineers. I'm like, I don't do that. I'm like, I don't do that on my free time. And like, they were passionate about coding, but I was starting to learn that I wasn't passionate about it, and I wasn't living and breathing that. I was living and breathing photography, and at that moment I realized that, which is what kind of started turning the tables of, or turning the gears of like, can I do this full time? And yeah, whatchamacallit? It was November 2018 when like when I dropped out, but kind of like the months leading up to that. Oh, before like the months leading up to that, like I failed one class, and like everybody fails a class like here and there. Like it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Just retake it and just get a C at least to pass through it. But for San Jose State, the computer science program was heavily impacted, and they put me on probation, academic probation. I'm like, what the heck? Like I've known so many people who failed the same class 3 times and they're not even on probation.
Yeah.
So I got a letter of probation, and they said that, oh, if you need to come in and sign a contract. I'm like, sign what contract? So I go in, and they tell me about this like paperwork that if I fail one more CS major class, I'm out of the program. And I asked why. Like that's such a drastic thing. They said like, oh, major's impacted. We want all of our candidates to be very competitive. So make sure that you don't fail another class. I'm like, well, this is horrible. Like there's a lot of pressure to do this for something that I'm starting to lose like interest in. So I had 5 classes in the fall of 2018, and I was acing 4 of them, but I was failing 1. And I was like, oh shoot, like can I drop this class? And it was too late. My teacher couldn't sign off on it. The reasons of me like wanting to drop out were not good enough. So if I were to keep that failing class, I would have to leave the computer science major and then change my major and then stay in college for 3+ more years to graduate with a degree in something else, maybe graphic design, because that was kind of interesting. And I'm like, staying in college for 3+ more years for something that like I don't really want to do when I have right now at this very moment in fall of 2018, at that very moment, I knew that photography might be the way to go. Like I needed to weigh the options. And then November 2018, I got my response back from my petition to drop that failing class. They said, no, you can't drop it, which means I would have to stay in college for 3+ more years because I would have to switch majors. And I was like, at that moment, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And like in November, like I was just like in my apartment. I got that email and I just like leaned back on my chair. I'm like, well, photography is going to be my life now. And at that point, I had no gigs sustaining me. I had no gigs coming my way. I had like 0 income coming in. I had nothing. So that's what it looked like at that very moment when I dropped out of college.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? That was very in-depth.
Yeah.
I didn't get that from the video that you posted.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm totally going to spam all of your comment sections and like, hey, you want the real story? Go to my podcast.
Dude, follow this podcast. This podcast is so good. The Creative Crucible podcast.
Oh, yeah. By the way, everybody who's listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there's a plane flying over us.
Yeah.
But if you're watching on YouTube, you get it.
Yeah.
But you actually made a really good point with the example when you were talking to your classmate who was talking about the Yosemite thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, she goes to school, she learns computer science, she codes. When she goes home, it's still the same thing, right? And I think that's where you found like almost like a self-awareness point of view, where it's just like in class you're trying to Google like, oh, what's the next best lens? What's a cool prime that I could get?
Yep.
And then you go home, it's the same exact thing. And I think that goes with like a lot of, let's say, pro athletes, for example, or maybe we'll just say, let's just say, you know, whatever, like Steve Jobs or Wozniak, right?
Sure,
It's like, you know, they were going to school, but they were failing school because they were kind of too busy, you know, doing their own computer science stuff, you know?
Yep.
And I think that goes for anybody or whatever industry anybody's trying to tap into, where it's like you need to make it your life if you want it to be successful. You know, I think you know, being a hobbyist or just like loving the idea of it's not enough nowadays. There's a lot more that really goes into it. So it's just like photography has to be your life, and like not just to a point where you're taking better quality photos, but like there's so many other elements to it, especially when it comes to freelancing, I believe, you know, because even then, like back then you were kind of, you know, you're taking family portraits, or you're even you're taking gaming events. But as you started leveling up through your freelancing career, you realize like, wow, it's not just being able to go out there and have the perfect camera settings. It was also like, dude, I need to like interact and like help direct these people, you know. So I kind of so I mean, maybe try not to sell yourself short with that cotillion shoot. Maybe it turned out great. I mean, that was the time when people would actually take photos on their iPhone, they would import it to Visco, put the filter on it, then they would export it out of Visco back onto their phone, and then import it onto Instagram.
Yep.
I was like, dude, what a pain in the ass. Why did people do that? And then we had to make sure we did the hashtag VSCO.
Yeah, hashtag Visco, so people know.
Yeah, like why did we do that? Like we thought it was so trendy to do, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But anyways, let's actually go back to the. Let's let the listeners know how we actually first met.
Oh yeah,
we met on a. I feel like it sounds like I was about to say a dating website. No, we did not.
It did sound like it was ramping up to that.
We met on eHarmony. No, we didn't.
Oh yes, we did.
It was a Facebook group. I'm not sure if it was Asian Hustle Network or Asian Creative.
It was an Asian Creative Network, ACN.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how I met you. So I remember it was like in the middle of last year, and then you're kind of just trying to interact with the community out there, and then I kind of DM'd you and then just wanted to talk because you were looking to tap into commercial work.
Yep.
And then I called you because I was like, hey, I do commercial videography, so I kind of know an idea of the industry of how to tap in. And then so we kind of did that. We shot one commercial project together. And then lo and behold, you started your YouTube channel, and then now I'm learning from you. So
hey, I'm still learning from you too, dude.
Oh, appreciate it so much. That YouTube channel, how's that going? How long have you actually been? I know you've had the YouTube account,
yes,
but when did you actually start doing it into an actual series? Because every time I go into the subscriptions tab when I go into YouTube, I'm just like, all right, when is Chris Chu's next video? So when did you actually start creating a plan and whatnot, and understanding what kind of content you wanted to put out there?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So December 31st of 2019 was when I kind of dropped the bomb and telling people that I dropped out of college. And December 2019, I've already been out of school for a year, but a lot of people didn't know. They're like, oh, Chris is taking a lot more photos. How come I haven't seen a graduation Instagram post yet? He seems to be very busy on weekdays, especially. So that was when I dropped my first video. But before that, I had months and months and months of planning. I have this black notebook that I write all my ideas and illustrations in. So I have this black notebook of ideas that I put in. So I was planning out all right, how am I going to premiere? This is how I'm going to premiere. I dropped out of college. So the second video that I want to do was actually showing people that you can just put in the time and effort into anything that you want to do, and you will eventually get better. And that second video was actually supposed to be me learning how to do a really fast rap by Logic. And he has one song called 100 Miles and Running, and he's spitting bars like crazy over and over and over again. And that was going to be my intentional second video, but I finished it. But when I was thinking about it, I'm like, wait, why would I post this video? This is kind of a bad idea because it's just not on brand for photography. So I had these other millions of ideas that I want to shoot. And then I think before COVID hit, I was dropping one video every Wednesday or every other Wednesday, something like that. And I'm like, okay, this is a nice consistent feed. And then COVID hit. All my gigs dried up. I was doing pretty well in the gig department. That's what kept me only posting every other week maybe. And then everything dried up. All of it got rescheduled to 2021 or got canceled completely. And then I was just at home. And my friends were asking me so what are you going to do now? Because they knew that I'm self-employed and that everything is dependent on my effort. So I said oh, I think maybe during quarantine people would want to work on self-portraits because that's the only thing you can take a picture of. So I make a self-portrait video. And as I'm thinking, and as I was planning out the video, I'm I don't want to just tell you what to do and then show you the finished project. I want to take you in the process of it because one thing that I really want to show people is that, dude, even professional photographers or anybody who does photography, they always almost sound like they don't know what they're doing, but in their head they know what they're doing kind of thing. So in that whole video, you see how I'm just stuttering a lot or how I'm just gesturing a lot of things, and then you see how I compose a photo, and then you see the finished product and you're like, oh shoot, he knows what he's doing, even though he sounds like a goofball. And then that video ended up blowing up after 2 to 3 weeks. Like in the beginning, it was like 200 views. And I'm like, freaking sick. Let's go. I got 200 views. And then like I dropped another video the following like Thursday. And then I dropped another video the following Tuesday. Then I did Tuesdays and Thursdays like every single week. And then that first self-portrait video ended up blowing up to 50K views. Then blew up to 100K views. And then all of a sudden, like all my other videos started doing well. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I found out that that first self-portraits video blew up. My subscription went from like 100 to 10,000 in a month. And it was like insane. And then now, like after 2 months, like since I started March 26th, I think today's May 27th or something like that. I could get the date wrong, but after 2 months, I'm now at like 23.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's insane that like the consistency that I was uploading like really helps, because all these ideas that I had in my book, I finally had time to actually make the video. Because if I like kept having gigs, it would be like less frequent, like again every other Wednesday or something like that. So yeah.
Well, it almost seems like you didn't really know the answer when people ask you what you were gonna do because of the whole you know, quarantine and whatever's going on. Yeah. But it almost sounds like your actions really just kind of answered it for you, where it's just like, hey, you know what? I'm not sure, but I'm gonna take this time to scale my brand. That's literally what happened. And I think in order to be successful in that aspect is you can't really go in there you can't really go into it with the intention of like, oh, I'm trying to make money off it, or I just want to monetize and things like that. So and I think that's what has made your channel, you know, successful up to this point, where it's just like, it just seems honest, you know, and it doesn't seem like, and one, it's not super dull. So like, because the thing is, because at the same time, it's just like you understand, we're learning how to, you know, take self-portraits, or how to take product photos, you know, of our shoes, of our sneakers, which I thought was really cool. By the way, I liked what you did when you crumpled up that paper.
Oh, thanks, dude.
And you added like texture, right? Because it was just on boxes. Yeah. The shoes were on boxes, and then you just crumpled paper through it, and I was like, whoa, that it's 3D.
Thank you.
It's popping now. And because at the same time, like, I felt like in your videos, we're kind of connecting to you because we're understanding who you are as a person as well. So you're making the learning process fun, especially for a lot of people who might have been thinking about taking on photography, but they just don't know how to maybe start, or they're looking for that motivation or that inspiration to do it, you know? Because for me, growing up, every time I've seen a professional photographer, like let's just say like at a wedding, I always see like a guy who's in his late 50s with the camera, and he has the vest and he has the straps with 2 other cameras. But times have changed, man.
Times have changed.
Times have changed. You got some young guns like you out there that are just killing it, man. It's just like, whoa. The photographers did not look like Chris back in the day.
Oh, they didn't. No, they really didn't.
So what really is your goal with your channel?
Yeah, so right now, at least, my goal is to just like make videos that I can't find on YouTube, and like to have fun doing it. The one of like the mantras that I like push on my channel almost in every single video is that it doesn't matter like who you are, or if you're like started out with talent or not. If you put in the time and the work, you will get there, kind of thing. And the way that I structure my videos is I don't try to make myself look immaculate or perfect. Like I want to show like the flaws of it, like the goofiness of it, or make it even fun, because I think like people feel like photography is so intimidating because you have to be a certain way. Like you have to be a certain kind of person. You have to be like that late 50s guy who is like really like sophisticated and everything. But if you look at me, it's like, dude, this guy's like on crack. And like he can still like produce some kind of work. And I show you like through my process that like, oh, I'm like even figuring out the video as I'm making the video kind of thing. And like you don't have to have it all figured out. And that goes for life itself. And yeah, so the goal is to like really just try to make photography less intimidating. Like, dude, pick up a camera, go shoot what you like, what your gut tells you to shoot. Take a picture of it, take tens and thousands of it, and then go back home, try to edit it, and try to learn from like what you don't like and what you do like. And yeah, so that's the goal right now. Eventually, the quote unquote master plan in my head is to maybe go full time YouTube and make a production studio out of it, and then try to teach as many people in person, like how to like make a business out of photography, or even learn how to like pick up a camera or whatever. Because like I just really like teaching people. Like I never like was a teacher to begin with, or like I didn't like I didn't even major in teaching or anything like that. But teaching people and sharing this knowledge that I have is like so important to me, because like the knowledge that I have was passed down by me from somebody else. Oh, passed down to me by somebody else. So it's like for me to be like arrogant and cocky and say like, these are my secrets. This is my piece of knowledge. And to say that is like hella cocky. I'm like, dude, I got this from somebody else. So I'm going to share it with somebody else.
That is the one thing that I don't know if it's just maybe like the area that I'm freelancing in, but there's a lot of creative freelancers. They're so secretive.
Yeah, they're super secretive. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? Like for me personally, I actually spoke about this to my friend Mark Kayabyab. Shout out Mark Kayabyab. He was one of my earlier guests on this show. We were just talking about like, dude, like I don't want to share. I don't think I have industry secrets, so I'm more than willing to just teach everyone everything I know, and if they want to copy the way I do things, then I am flattered.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's like, please feel free. I don't care if you copy the way I do things, because that's how I do it, and it's cool. But another thing you mentioned earlier, where like you're saying like, hey, if you want to be better at something, just like, follow your gut on what you want to shoot, and then take like tens and thousands of photos of it. And I think that's really good, because the thing is, if you're planning on taking tens and thousands of photos of a certain thing, and you can only make it to like 50 photos, and you're like, then that's good, because now maybe photography is not for me.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that should go with anything in life. If you want to try something new and maybe see if it's something that could be made of something, and if you're possibly wired for it, just go out and just keep doing it and force yourself to do it. And like, because it's easy to pick up a hobby when the times are good, especially if you have people around you who are constantly supporting you. Like, yeah, you should totally go out and do it. But you got to know, like in the darkest of the times, are you still going to pick up that camera?
Yeah.
That's the real deciding point of whether or not you're in the right place in life.
That is super true.
That's what I think.
I had my first huge creative drought after my first breakup right out of high school. Oh man, that was rough. I was really in a like emotional trench, and I stopped taking photos for I think 6.5 months. Oh, and that was hard. I'm pretty sure I had my first full frame camera at that point. I think it was $2,000 to get that body. So like it was a lot of money just sitting in my room collecting dust. And it took me a really long time to get out of that, and to start taking photos again. When I came back out of it, I started sucking again, and it was really rough to get back to like, when am I good? So yeah. I get that.
Yeah, and it must have been a little bit more difficult back in the day, because there was a little bit less access to communities, really. Like in like online communities, like even today, where it's just like, if I'm feeling down in the dumps, and let's say I'm in a creative rut, I'm just like, well, you know what, I'm just gonna watch some positive Peter McKinnon videos, and I'm back in the game. I want to go to Toronto now.
yeah, we're all those talented people are.
Exactly. So what would you say, what would you tell somebody who wants to do YouTube? I mean, because when I listen to a lot of other people who kind of teach how to do YouTube, they always say like, oh, well, you got to be like a professional in your field, or whatever the heck you're talking about. So what's your take on that, on anybody who is thinking about starting a YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because there are like tons of people who say like, oh, you got to be the best in your field. You got to be like hella knowledgeable, or you have to have this kind of personality, or just like a lot of things. They just say like, just do it kind of thing. Well, which is true, but like people kind of need direction, and telling them to just do it is, it's good direction, but not good enough sometimes. A couple of things that I would, if we have time, a couple of things that, are we good on time?
We're good on time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I would share for anybody who wants to start YouTube is to know who you are. I think knowing who you are really helps you in not only like YouTube or photography, but like in every aspect of your life, because a lot of things will like change. Like if you're like just growing up Whether you're like a teenager or like a college student or like a young adult, like me and MJ, like a lot of things just like change from year to year. And knowing who you are helps you like have a path for yourself and to just stick to that. So when I started YouTube, I'm like, I'm not a monotone film photographer, even though that works for them. I'm not a hella raunchy, crazy guy like the Paul brothers. I'm just like me. And like when you see like the really like crazy energy from me, that's like who I am. But I know how to talk to people regularly too, like how I'm talking on this podcast. I'm not like bouncing off like these bleachers and like screwing around with the audio. Like I know how to talk to people. So knowing who you are and being proud of like, and being proud of that, being proud of your interests, like, dude, I'm into hip hop, but I'm also into anime. I'm like into cars, but I'm also into photography. I'm also into like sneakers, but I'm also into like boots and stuff like that. So taking pride in like who you are and knowing who you are really sets the foundation for like what your videos would look like. Because I don't want people who want to start YouTube to fake it. Because then you will have like not only like an identity crisis, which is like, you know, on the extreme side of the spectrum, you're going to eventually burn out from putting up this fake facade. Like, who the heck are you? And I think people are getting better and better nowadays of smelling out BS. Yeah. Like they can tell like this is so fake. I don't want to like subscribe to this kind of thing. So that's my #1 tip to starting YouTube. Like, know who you are. And like it might take some like time to reflect on that, because we live in such a fast-paced culture that not enough people give themselves enough time to reflect on who they are and like what has happened in their life. So yeah, another tip that I would share is be okay with not being perfect. I think a lot of people like sit in the rooms trying to think of a perfect idea of like what the final product is going to look like, and they just never do it because they're like paralyzed by that, right? Like they're like, oh wait, but I'm pretty sure one person's not going to like this or 10 people are not going to like this. I think you should just make things that you like, and that's it. Like if you like it, gold. You should just do it. You don't have to upload it, but putting in that practice is good, because if you're always going to like wait for like a perfect product and like cut, retake, then it's just gonna, one, burn you out, and two, you might never like get as good as you want to get. You know, so be okay with not being perfect, because every single video on YouTube is flawed. Every single person in the world is flawed. So chasing after that perfection is like an anomaly. It's an exception. It won't happen. So yeah.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point, where it's just like being yourself is important, because when you cater to an audience, that kind of just sucks, because then you're essentially just a puppet. Yep. You're right. Well, which is why it's cool that you're kind of blending into other things that you're interested in your life with your photography and your channel, where it's just like you're into sneakers. Well, it's like cool. It's like sneakers meet photography and things like that. Yep. Or even like, you know, it seems like you like hanging out with your friends and you like going out to shoot. That LA vlog was cool.
Oh God, that one was like cringe. That's cringy to me now.
Really? Yeah. I thought that was really cool. I mean, I got like the whole, you know, Matty Hapoya type of
travel vibes.
Travel, yeah,
travel feels. I mean,
travel feels exactly in there. But no, it's really cool. I really like the aesthetic of your YouTube channel. Anybody listening should check out Chris Chu's channel, because even the aesthetic of your thumbnails, it literally looks like I'm in an arcade. I'm
whoa, really?
Dude, because like you go into your channel and you see all of your videos, like the grid right there, and then like the font that you're using, I was like, oh cool, I feel like I'm in an arcade. I want to play that one.
Oh shoot, that sounds really cool actually.
Yeah, and it might be a coincidence, but every time because I stream YouTube on my TV, right? Yeah. I always happen to be folding laundry when I'm watching your videos. So I'm just cool laundry.
That's the niche I was going for.
Exactly, laundry with Chris Chu.
Yeah.
So what about you know, going into, you know, the creative field? Like, what about making that jump? I feel like there's so many inspiring people out there, maybe like on YouTube, for example, who are saying like, you got to go 100% on it. You know, like you know, you got to make the jump. And in a lot of cases, I feel like, you guys, I don't know, that's kind of scary. I don't think everybody should make the jump.
I don't think everybody should either.
How can you distinguish somebody who is ready to make that jump, or should consider making that jump as you did?
That is a very good question. Even though I dropped out of college, I would never go up to somebody and say, you should drop out of college, because it's such a dangerous thing.
Yep.
A lot of YouTube influencers and social media influencers glamorize the hell out of it. They make it sound like once you quit your 9-to-5 job, you can just travel as much as you want and you'll just make millions off of that, more than your 9-to-5 job. And I'm like, dude, this is a bad message, because when you quit anything like college or your full-time job, it just gets harder. It gets a lot harder in the beginning until you can create a system that sustains itself. And I'm still like figuring that out. So man, to make that jump, yeah, like what most people say, like, yeah, you have to really love it, but also people can really love it and still make it a side project. So you have to like really ask yourself, like, what do you value? Other couple of things that like might help is if you're a single young person, you have like less risk. You do have less risk because you don't have to watch out for somebody else. You can always move back home. Yeah, like it won't like look good on like your Tinder profile or whatever, but like it doesn't like freaking matter. Like if you like want to do it, then just do it. But you're well, yeah, I might have to take 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. But you know, while you think of an answer or whatnot, I think it's important for everybody to understand that if you do choose to freelance or become self-employed or make the jump, you know, like maybe just don't go to college or upper education and you know, create a brand for yourself, you might be leaving the 9-to-5, 8-hour, 5 days a week structure, but you will also be entering the 7 days, 12 to 14 day work week. And that's exactly what we're doing. So you're working a lot more days and you're working a lot more hours.
Yep.
But you're also a lot more happier.
That is also true.
In assuming that, you know, the field that you're choosing is the right field, right?
True.
So it's not choosing something as a hobby. It's not, like we mentioned earlier, it's not enough anymore, right? You gotta be borderline obsessive about it, or else what, right?
Yeah.
Because there's hobbyists out there who are making, you know, decent cash here and there. But if you want to make a career in you got to make a lifestyle out of it, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm gonna go back. So, how can you know someone? How should somebody consider, you know, making that kind of jump? It's a big jump.
Yeah. So I think one thing that you should heavily consider is that, say you're in your 9-to-5 and say like you're in your college thing and you have this like passion on the side. Let's just say photography, because like I can heavily relate to that. You have to ask yourself, like, how long have you been doing that? You know, I don't know if it's like very feasible or even like prudent for someone to just quit their 9-to-5 and be like, all right, I'm going to be a chef now. And you never like cooked for anybody professionally. I think that's just not smart. I don't think that's smart at all, personally speaking. Mm-hmm. For myself, like when I left school in 2018, I've been doing photography for 8.5 years at that point. So it's like I've been like very experienced in it technical wise, but in terms of like gigs and freelancing, I was just getting momentum of doing it like for money, and or not doing it for money, but earning money from that passion. So I like kind of understood a little bit about the business. I understood like, oh, what it would look like to go and get a client or go and advertise myself on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I like kind of had some experience of like fetching after the work, because when you drop out and when you quit, that work doesn't just come to you like a regular day. Like your teacher assigns you those assignments. Your boss gave you that queue of assignments. But when you're freelancing, nobody's doing that but yourself. So I think if you're going to make the jump, you have to ask yourself, how long have you been doing that passion, and how long have you been actually like figuring out that process? Not only like the creative technical side, like whether you're a painter or a baker or like a photographer, but like even the business side of it, right? Like have people been paying you already for your services, and have people been asking you for your services? And if people are asking you for services, is it sustainable for you? So for me personally, the amount of clients that I had at that point was not sustainable. So that was like an exception for me. And I was like, yeah, like people have been paying me. Yeah, people have been asking me, but not enough people have been asking me to make this like an easy transition. But for me personally, I knew that I wanted it so badly that I will just work myself so hard. Like what you said, these days are not going to be 9-to-5, Monday through Friday anymore. It's going to be like 12 to 12, Sunday through Saturday. Like when I work, when my work day starts is when my eyes open. my workday ends when my eyes close, and that's it. So like, I knew for a fact that even though I didn't have a sustainable amount of clients coming in, I will, for a fact, knowing myself, I will figure it out no matter what kind of thing. So I think those are like the big defining factors. Like, how long have you been doing it? Have people been paying you already? How many people have been asking you? And the amount of people asking you, is it sustainable? So like, those are like some questions that you should ask yourself if you ever plan to make that big jump. And then of course, do you actually love doing that passion? Yeah.
Right. No, exactly. Also, to add to that, once you decide to, you know, go full-time freelance or self-employed, you're also going to be living for your brand, always, 24/7.
Yep.
So no more drunk Snapchats. Like you can't do that anymore. Okay, you can't you can't be like, you know, jumping the fences of a high school in the middle of the night.
Yep.
I don't know where I'm getting these examples. I've never done any of that.
I've never done any of those either.
But you know, we're kind of getting to the end of our time here. So I mean, I would say, just for closing statements, to the people who do want to, you know, freelance, who do want to do photography, and, you know, maybe make a living out of it, or maybe just like a side hustle. What would you say? Any kind of words to, you know, just getting the first clients and whatnot?
Yeah.
And how to get there and how to get those first clients?
Yeah, getting the first client is probably really hard, or just like learning how to get clients in the beginning is very general. One advice that I have for you is if you're going to freelance, obviously you kind of have an idea of like what kind of work you want to be paid for. If you're a sneaker guy, you probably want to get paid for like sneaker jobs so that you can like touch like sneakers and like get your hands on those products. So when you're at home or when you have free time with your homies or with your friends, go and do a sneaker photo shoot on your own accord and direct it yourself, and how you would envision a perfect gig to be like, and then put that on your website, put that on the gram or any social platform. And like, for you fashion photographers, well, it's hard to do wedding photography because you can't like, it's hard to like get like people to practice that with, but like, create work that you want to get paid for. If you're a fashion photographer, hit up one of your friends who has like a really good wardrobe and ask like, hey, do you want to do like a fun photo shoot for free?
Yep.
And then like create that portfolio work, spruce up that photography portfolio, and then like people will eventually notice you, right? But of course, like, you can't just like produce good work and then wait for it to come to you. You have to go out and get it. So honestly, the whole quote unquote shoot your shot thing is also like coming into play too. Just literally email blast like a lot of people. And like the worst is that they say no. And that's okay. Rejection is hard. Yeah, I get it. But shoot some emails to like your local like shoe store or your local baked goods or like your local like anything, and see if they like bite. And you could even do it for free if you want. You know, like that should be your choice. I don't think anybody should force you to do free work. You should do it on your own accord, or if you like really believe in the brand. But I think those tips will really help you get that first client. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, going on top of what you said about, you know, reaching out your friends to help you out with the project, you know, for like a spec work or like just like for shoes or fashion, for example. So your friends will help you. I'm going to say that again. Your friends, your actual friends, they're willing to help you because they support you, you know? So, because look, I know it's towards the end of this. I want to end it positive, but the thing is, you know, when you got the balls to do something like create a brand for yourself, it makes some people uncomfortable because you're willing to go out there and be different, and you'll notice that. So I've actually mentioned this before. Some of your first haters are gonna be your own friends and family, dude. Yeah. The people who you thought were your own friends and family. So, but it's okay. That's the bright side. You'll, you know, once you make the jump and you know, try freelancing and creating a brand for yourself, at least you'll learn now who's real for you. You know, it's like, oh,
unfortunately,
well, yeah, it's unfortunate to begin with, but then at the end of the day, it's like, well, at least I'm not gonna try to deal with them for the rest of my life now, because what the heck. And then going to your DM thing, that is actually a really big thing, and that's how I made my start. You know, luckily for me in like the videography industry, it's like it's so normal to have like big teams. So of course everybody wants help on sets and things like that. And so yeah, don't be afraid to just DMing people. A lot of people want to be like the next Ansel Adams, or they want to be the next Steven Spielberg, but you're afraid to DM somebody on Instagram. How the heck does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's a really good point.
You know what I mean? It's like these big names out there who have made it in these industries, they had the nerve to do things like that. And DMing a stranger on the internet does not take a lot of nerve. But that's the end of our time here, Mr. Chris Chu. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and really dropping some knowledge bombs. I really appreciate it. And can you let us know all of your social channels? Where can we see a lot of these videos that we mentioned and whatnot?
Yeah, well, first, before I drop those social handles, like, thank you, MJ, for letting me on this podcast. I've been watching, and I'm like, when the hell is he gonna let me on this podcast? I'm just kidding, but like, I'm super honored to like be able to like work with like a fellow creative person and someone who I met like through a Facebook group and like who has helped me in this process. I really could not have done it without MJ. So like he has definitely been a crucial part of this process. But yeah, being on this podcast and like sharing it with your like fans and audience is truly an honor. I'm not even lying. Like this is truly an honor. It's so awesome to do this. But back to your original question, my social handles, for YouTube at least, you can look up my first and last name, which is Chris, C-H-R-I-S. My last name is Chu, C-H-U. So if you look up Chris Chu on YouTube, you'll find me. Or if you literally click in self-portraits, I'm pretty sure you'll find me too. On Instagram, you can find me at Who's Chris Chu, W-H-O-S-C-H-R-I-S-C-H-U. Who's Chris Chu on Instagram. That's where I'm like the most lively on another platform that's not YouTube. So yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for being here again. Let's do an awkward fist bump.
Nice. Could not have been more awkward.
See you later, everyone.
All right.
Hey, it's MJ Vallejo, host of the Creative Crucible podcast. Did you like that episode? If you did, I would appreciate it so much if you gave my podcast a 5-star rating. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it would help me out so much. And I would love your feedback as well. So go ahead and put in the comments on what you liked and what you didn't like, and maybe who you think I should have as a next guest. I'll see you next time.